Welcome back to this episode of the Shooting Bricks podcast. And last week, it was a really good week for us because, for us, meaning the podcast, because it was our 50th, count 'em, 50th episode. So, how we feeling after episode 50, you guys?
You know what? I'm just living my life. Just gonna keep moving forward. As long as I'm not dead, we're gonna be okay.
Very, very, very good statement there. But
Yeah, very, very deep. Like how deep Curry be shooting lately. But
which we'll
feeling
get to in a
good. I'm
minute.
feeling like money. You know what I'm saying? 50 episodes in, 50 more, plus 50 more, plus 50 more, plus 50 more. Hate to sound like the Miami Heat when they first got together, but feel like we're on our road to our championship.
Absolutely.
Damn. I love it. No, definitely. It was a lot of fun to do the interviewing of you guys and obviously having come late. But man, it's just a blast being part of this and getting to talk hoops and looking forward to doing some more of that tonight. But great times, episode 50. What up?
Absolutely. And speaking of great times, as always, I'm Jerry Castillo, and I'm joined by.
I'm Daniel Huynh. I want to first thank the country of India for getting us on their charts earlier this week. To the people of India, we hope you keep listening and give basketball a chance. And joining me as well.
I hope you guys can. I mean, you see the Curry jersey. I just want you guys to know that we appreciate greatness on this podcast. And I'm going to talk about another great player,
Yes, sir.
Russell Westbrook, later in this podcast as well. But anyways, it's your boy, Gerrel Sales. And of course, we have.
Yo, what up? This is Skyler and fired up for tonight. We got Westbrook, we got Curry, we got legacy talk. It is everything you could possibly want out of a basketball podcast. So stay tuned because it's going to be a great episode.
Absolutely. Speaking of a legacy talk, well, G kind of mentioned it earlier, but Stephen Curry. Uh, hmm. What else is left to say about Sir Stephen Curry? What is there to talk about? He is the greatest shooter of all time, regardless of what people on the internet, specifically on Twitter, say. He is the greatest shooter of all time, regardless of all the different opinions, takes, 0 for 9 in the clutch, whatever have you. Which NBA insider Tom Habashow, he did the math and he dug into the analytics. He is the 10th most clutch player in the NBA. Take that with whatever you will. But he is the greatest shooter of all time. He hit the most threes in NBA history in a month with over 85 and counting, because as of recording, and probably by the time this comes out, the month of April hasn't ended yet. So he could probably be at 100 by the time this comes out, which is just insanity. And very, very, very simply put, I want to posit the question to you guys. Is there a doubt that he's the greatest shooter of all time? Because for me personally,
There's
after
oh
looking
go.
at the stats that he's putting up in the month of April with 38 points, 6.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists on 53 shooting, 47 from three, and 89.7 from the free throw line in 35 minutes, it just it just doesn't seem like this is anything that people can replicate. And obviously the Warriors lost yesterday against the Mavericks, which is horrific. That was nothing that it made me cry. I cried myself to sleep last night knowing how poorly the Warriors played. But they've had some quality wins over Denver and Philly. And at the crux of this is Stephen Curry and his immaculate shooting. And so I just want to posit this question to you guys. Is there a doubt that he's the greatest shooter of all time? Because personally speaking, you guys already know, no, there's no doubt. He's the best. He will be the best, and no one will ever dethrone him from that. So, interested to hear what you guys think.
There's absolutely no doubt, and anyone who kind of doubts the status of Stephen Curry being the best shooter of all time, he honestly belongs in an insane asylum. There's simply no question now. He is the greatest shooter of all time. Think about some of the greatest shooters of all time that ended up being the faces of their franchise. A lot of them could not even win at least one championship. Think about it. Steve Nash, one of the greatest shooters of all time, could not really win a championship. Jason Kidd, one of the greatest. Well, he was a good 3-point
He
shooter.
wasn't a good shooter at all.
Well, okay, you know what? Okay, forget about that.
He developed a clip towards the end of his career, and he's like tops in 3 pointers made. So I get your point, Daniel.
Yeah, he was the leader. He was the face of the Nets franchise. Did not win until much later in his career. Ray Allen, he was the face of a Bucks franchise and the Supersonics franchise. Did not win until his days in Boston, but he was not like anywhere near close to be that leader of that team. Stephen Curry, he has led this Warriors team to 3 championships. Yes, you could say Larry Bird has an argument in this discussion, but the one thing is that puts Stephen Curry above Larry Bird. Larry Bird did not revolutionize the game of basketball.
Thank you.
Larry Bird did not revolutionize anything. Stephen Curry literally changed the game and won 3 championships because of it. So, I mean, like, there's absolutely no question. He is. And honestly, no shooter has an argument against Steph Curry now. Oh, one thing I forgot. Reggie Miller, face of the Pacers franchise for years, won no championships. That's all I have to say here.
And also, you're kind of forgetting James Harden too.
James Harden,
Face of that Rockets franchise, shot a lot
Nothing.
of threes, but nada. But go ahead, G.
I'm agreeing with a lot of what you're saying, but I just want to pull out the argument that what makes Steph Curry a great shooter isn't the championships. Unfortunately, that's not the argument for me. What makes him the best shooter, and we didn't need this season to know that. Like, we've already known that. It's just solidifying it a little bit more. But what makes him a great shooter, what makes him the greatest shooter of all time, is that he is the first to revolutionize incorporating not only spot up shooting, but shooting off the dribble. In addition to that, the range. The whole reason why NBA 2K has a range extender badge is because Steph Curry. So what makes him the greatest shooter of all time is incorporating those 3 things: being an excellent, superb spot-up shooter, being able to incorporate Allen Iverson's ball handling to shooting off screens. He's the all-around shooter. We have Ray Allen. He was an amazing spot-up shooter, and he was amazing coming off those screens. Curry has that. We have Reggie Miller. Reggie Miller wasn't a great ball handler, but he can hit some threes, little step back here and there. So to be able to incorporate all those aspects to get off your shot and not just be a spot up shooter, that's what makes Steph Curry the greatest shooter of all time. And I just have to point out that I don't think that he led the Warriors. Unfortunately, we see it within the Finals MVPs. Kevin Durant got those Finals MVPs, and I understand Andre Iguodala didn't hold LeBron James down, but I don't think he led. He was an intricate part of that franchise, but and we're seeing what he is, how he is as a leader now, because there's nobody else. Draymond Green is already regressing as far as his potential goes, and there's nobody else there to step up. So now we're seeing what Curry is, being that leader, not having that secondary all-star, because he hasn't ever faced that within his career. So now we're seeing what he is as a leader. But beforehand, I think it was a collective effort. So I just wanted to point that argument out as well.
So really quickly,
Wow.
I did an article on, I mentioned this a lot because I truly believe Curry should have won the 2015 NBA Finals MVP. He has beaten Andre Iguodala in almost every category, statistical category, throughout that final series, and yet he didn't win. I wrote about it on Sportsnaut. Like, he has Iguodala beat on almost every statistical category, but he didn't win.
Yeah. No,
Take
that's
that
all.
for data.
I'll comment
mean-
on that as well. I mean, Andre Iguodala defended LeBron, and that is sort of how much credit the media gives LeBron. That's not saying LeBron is not one of the greatest players of all time, but we're really going to give it to a dude just for defending one of the greatest. I mean, shouldn't we have, MJ didn't lose in the finals, of course. That's the big difference. But, should we have given it to it's just ridiculous. Should we have given it to every defender who defended the greatest player ever on the team? No. And it was just a knock against Curry.
I think it was just kind of like similar to the Kawhi Leonard situation too, the year prior.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
Exactly.
Anyways,
That
go
was
ahead.
that was the LeBron MVP defender phase of the NBA and the media voting after his ridiculous performance in the 2015 finals. But yes, Curry should have an NBA Finals MVP on his resume. But to answer the question about Stephen Curry's legacy, look, I was very nostalgic for Ray Allen for a long time. I almost didn't want to let go of that for a bit. I remember growing up watching him as Jesus Shuttlesworth in He Got Game. I remember him hitting the most threes at the time in NBA playoff history against the Lakers. His days on the Supersonics dropping 50 in triple overtime and a game winner. And, shout out to the legacy and the career of Ray Allen. And of course, the Miami Heat shot, the greatest. Like, who could ever be better at that time? And here we are 8 years later. And if Stephen Curry missed his next 500 3-pointers, he would still have a better field goal percentage than Ray Allen and is like basically 200 3-pointers away from passing him. That is ridiculous. Stephen Curry has a 3-point percentage of 43.4. Ray Allen, 40%. Ray Allen shot 7,429 shots to get there. Steph, 6,379. He could miss his next 500 shots and still have a better percentage than someone who was for a long time considered the greatest shooter of all time. And when you look at that statistic, Stephen Curry is not just the greatest shooter of all time, but he's the definition of a Hall of Famer. The definition of a Hall of Famer, the actual definition, is someone who changed the game. And Stephen Curry, he ripped the game apart. He comes in 2009. He's got ankle problems. He's straight out of Davidson. People are doubting him. He was seriously viewed as like, he didn't get the max contract at first because they were worried he was just a player with ankle problems. So he's playing on this cheap deal when he's winning MVPs. Steph Curry was not supposed to do this. And that's what makes this all the more special and incredible. And no matter who our favorite teams are on this podcast, we respect the hell out of greatness. So shout out to Steph Curry. The guy is just unbelievable. Yeah, we got G-Rock and the Warriors. We all know Jared's diehard Warriors. And I grew up on the We Believe days as well. So I respect the franchise. Rick Barry 50 years ago. And Steph Curry has redefined that franchise with 3 championships. One more piece of context about this month. Steph Curry has hit 10 3-pointers 4 separate times. 12 players in NBA history have had games of 10 3-pointers and more. Stephen Curry is not just the greatest shooter of all time. He's changed and revolutionized the game and what shooting the basketball means. I mean, we wouldn't have Logo Lillard without Steph Curry. I hate to say, but Steph has been doing it. And shout out to Lillard as well. And it's just those two have stuck with their franchise. And that's what I love about Steph too. He's done it all with one franchise. So got to give Steph his flowers. Guy's the greatest shooter. He's redefined the game, and it's a joy watching him play. He's having like a Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan type of scoring spree right now, but with shooting and 3-pointers and redefining what that means. And rather than even just compare, he's doing his own thing, and it's great to see, and I hope it keeps up.
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the things you mentioned, his 3-point attempts, he hit what? He got into second place with 597 games played. That's insanity, dude. And I did the math. If he hits 233 pointers, which is about his average throughout his career, if he hits 233 pointers for the next 5 years, he's going to end up with 3,921 3-pointers at 38, right? It's not like he's going to fall off a cliff and forget how to shoot entirely. We've seen Ray Allen, Reggie Miller play until their 40s, and they were still hitting buckets from deep. So it's really not outside the realm of possibility to see him hit, by the time his career is over, around 4,000, maybe 4,100 3-pointers. I don't think anyone's ever going to do that, ever. Especially with this kind of efficiency. The only person that comes to mind is Trae Young, but I don't even know a Trae Young because, from what we've seen, he can do that, but I don't trust it yet, if that makes sense.
I wouldn't even put his name up there. Sorry.
I
50
mean,
stats.
What
Well,
about Luka?
Trae-
If he steps it up. That's the one I'm actually
Say it
curious
again.
about. Luka, I'm curious about if he could step up the 3-point percentage. I mean, we've seen just that he's a special player.
I mean, he could, if he hits with alarming regularity and the amount of shots that he hits with a high percentage, which all goes back to the alarming regularity part. I could see him potentially sneaking into maybe like the top 10. We'll put it there, top 10. If that's anything else, great. But if not, then it's no knock on him. He's just not a good shooter.
It's
I
and
just don't. Oh, go ahead, Gerrel.
Go ahead, Jay.
I was just gonna say, and he unfortunately the play style is so different.
Mhm.
Luka has to create. So if he's just standing behind the 3-point line, that's not helping the Mavericks. So I don't think that. Yeah, he just needs it as a fallback, as an option to keep defenders on their toes.
Yeah,
He'll have his clutch 3-point highlights, but
Yeah,
as far as
got those
getting
bad
into
boys.
the top, it'll be tough for him.
Yeah, it also goes back to your thing, G. You don't want everyone to play one style of game. So
Yes, thank you. Go ahead,
Yes.
Daniel. Though.
I just wanted to say I just don't see Luca ever becoming like a sharpshooter like Curry, because that's not his game. It's an arsenal and his weaponry, but like that's not how Luca's game is you know created around. It honestly, like his Luca's game is more, a lot of it's influenced by like people like Kobe Bryant and Trae Young. Trae Young is not even close to the level of Stephen Curry. Honestly, Trae Young is a poor man's Stephen Curry, and no one wants to be a poor man's version of someone.
Empty stats.
okay, I'm gonna be honest though. If I'm a poor man's version of an NBA player, I'm doing pretty damn well for myself. Just putting that out there.
That's a good way to look at it.
I would,
Yeah.
if I'm a poor man's Stephen Curry, I'd 100% take that over whatever I am now compared to an NBA player, which is like
Man.
a minuscule amount. Bro, have you seen the video of Brian Scalabrine taking on those high schoolers?
Oh yeah.
Bro,
Absolutely. I've never doubted NBA talent, aside from Kwame Brown, but I've never doubted NBA talent.
dude, I think it was him after that entire matchup. He was like, I'm closer to LeBron than you guys are to me. And I just was like, damn, he's right.
I mean, biggest thing is size. NBA players know how to use their size. That's a big thing.
Along with their skill, along with their work ethic, their talent.
Yeah,
everything else.
absolutely. I'm just saying, like that's a big factor, just having the size and being able to use that. Because if you saw Brian Scalabrine, I'm not taking anything away from his skills, but whenever you see basketball players go up against regular pedestrians, what do? Put them in a post. Use your size. A lot of NBA is being able to use that size effectively. Look, we see Andre Drummond. He ain't using his size effectively. No offense. I'm sorry. I went on a tangent. Go ahead.
No, it's all good, man. I mean, there are some people who can use their size, and there's some that can't. That's just how it is, right? We personally know of someone, we're not going to name names, but we know of someone who was like 6'5" or 6'7" and didn't play in the post. Cool. Anyways, moving on. Not to get on that tangent, but on the flip side, right? We're talking about Curry being the greatest shooter of all time, and there's no disputable evidence that can be presented to show that, hey, he's not the best shooter of all time. That being said, if you are playing devil's advocate, what is the argument that can be made against Curry being the greatest shooter of all time? Or is there any argument that you can think of? Because I talked about the clutch situations. He's 10th in the league in being the most clutch player of all time. Not all time, but the 10th most clutch player in the league, right? There's
currently,
Kyrie Irving is number 9 and a bunch of other players, but he is the 10th most clutch player in the league. So can you guys think of any argument against Curry being the greatest shooter of all time?
No, there's just not any argument, in my opinion. I'm sorry. There just isn't.
Someone said yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's always something that you could point out. The free throw percentage is 89.7. He needs to be higher, 95. If we want to point out something in addition to that, but don't get me wrong. You said find an argument. I'm going to find an argument because you can always argue.
If you can, doesn't mean you have to.
I feel like career-wise, he should be 50, 40, 90 regardless. So get that free throw percentage up. And in addition to that, I know he shoots some mid-range, but he doesn't have a lot of mid-range in his game. It's threes, it's getting into the paint. So that would make him that's an argument that you can potentially make.
Really quickly, that 89.7% is for the month of April. His career is 90.6.
Okay.
which is the highest of all time.
All right.
Okay.
The only thing I could think of, which I already invalidated with my own argument, is about Ray Allen having the greatest shot in NBA history. But because of what Steph has done, you could have argued that at the time. You could have argued that a couple of years ago. But at this point, it's pretty tough to make an argument. But I think, if Steph Curry could have like a finals and NBA moment, that would just be dope. That would just be dope on his NBA highlight reel, and I'd love to see it.
So what you're saying is the Warriors should make it to the finals at some point again. Book it, NBA.
Yes.
Adam Silver,
Yes.
make that happen.
I
more
think the
years.
Warriors will
Three-
eventually make it back to the finals.
Yeah,
They
it's
will.
going to be
too.
Lakers the next 2 years, and then Warriors going for one more round. Nostalgia with Klay Thompson, Steph Curry back, James Wiseman balling out, Andrew Wiggins still there, some young guys. Andrew Wiggins filling that Harrison Barnes, but Duncan and able to draw 40 now role.
Imagine. But what if it's like Lakers, Warriors, and then Lakers? Just so you have Clay. Clay is not going to be 100% next year. So the following year, everyone's going to be 100%, provided everyone stays. Wiseman gets a little bit wiser, and then he becomes a wise man. And then
Wiseman.
yeah, and then the Warriors have a really good, solid core. If Kelly Oubre decides to stay and becomes like a super sub, I think that'd be a more manageable time. But we're talking about legacies, and legacies are kind of a weird thing, and there's a lot of arguments that happen when it comes to legacies. And so G and I had this conversation a few I would say a few hours ago. It feels like it's a few hours ago, about Russell Westbrook. And currently the Bulls have fallen out of the play-in tournament altogether because of the Wizards led by Russell Westbrook. The Wizards currently have won 9 of 10 before losing to the Spurs 146-143 in overtime. And the Wizards' 8-game winning streak was their longest in 20 years. That's a long
That's
time to...
MJ.
Yeah, right? Imagine winning 8 games in a row with like what, a 38-year-old Michael Jordan at the helm. Well, it's not. Well, now that I say that out loud, it's not as crazy as you think, because it is Michael Jordan, but still, I mean, 20 years is a long time. But
Right.
anyways, back to Westbrook. He's been leading the charge. He's had 21 triple doubles in his last 31 games, 19 in his last 26, 17 in his last 21, 14 in his last 16, 10 in his last 11. Oscar Robertson never had that, and I think that in a few games, Westbrook could potentially surpass Oscar Robertson as the most triple doubles leader in NBA history. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong there.
You're right.
Yeah. I believe he has 176, and Robertson has 181.
Right. And so, really quickly, switching to Oscar Robertson real quick, do you think Oscar could do this now if he was playing in today's game, right? He's 6'5", about 215, 220, right? Do you think he could translate his play from, way back then into now?
I mean, it would have to be under like a certain like context. It would have to be like a modernized like Oscar Robertson, like not the Oscar Robertson we saw back in the day, because the play styles back in the day are very different than what we have now. I mean, little things like nutrition standards have like dramatically affected the game, and the game is, we just discussed Steph Curry, like the tactics are vastly like different and much more advanced than they were 40, 50 years ago. So if you pulled Oscar Robertson from his time into today's game, my chances are, if every NBA athlete is much more athletic now. So in my mind, no. But if you were to modernize and like create a modernized Oscar Robertson, sure, yeah. But it just depends like how you're gonna plug them in this era.
I think what I was thinking is that there are certain players in every decade, every generation of basketball that you can plug into this generation, and their game would kind of fit, right? You look at Elgin Baylor, his game would definitely fit, right?
Facts.
You look at Pistol Pete Maravich,
Kobe's would
Facts.
his game would
Facts.
translate. You look at Lou Alcindor, Hareem Abdul-Jabbar. Why did I say it like that?
Yes.
His game would definitely translate. So
Facts.
there are these players that their games could translate, and Drazen Petrovic, right? His game could transfer. So I'm just thinking like Oscar's skill set because he is a bigger guard.
Yeah.
He could probably translate his game here.
I
Why not?
question the athleticism in today's NBA and the speed and the pace. And I know the pace was pretty intense back then, but it's just Westbrook does a lot of like drive into the rim, kicking out for the 3-pointer. And he would, I mean, the great players are able to adapt the game. That's the real, like Michael Jordan would be great in any era. It's just reality. And so I think that he'd do well. I know we're going to get into Mr. Westbrook more in a minute here, but I think what he's doing is really, really special and something that with an 8-game win streak, you can't take for granted too much.
I think Oscar would fare well in today's game. Like Jarrod said, combo guard. He has the body type. I could think of 5 players that have that similar body type, and I'm gonna list them. 6'5", 220. James Harden is 6'5", 220. Malcolm Brogdon about 6'4", 6'5", 220. We look at in the best comparison I can make here is Oscar Robertson will be a modern day Tyreek Evans. Tyreek Evans came on the scene, 6'6", 6'5", point guard, 220, 25-5 his rookie year. Sacramento Kings. Shout out to Tyreek Evans. Let's get you on the podcast. But yeah, absolutely. The skill set is there. He's able to impact the game, not only in the scoring column, but also rebounding and also playmaking. And if you can impact the game in multiple facets, you can play in today's NBA. We see Kyle Anderson. Kyle Anderson is a big point forward, right? He played point forward at UCLA, and slow-mo is effective in his game. You see Nikola Jokic. He's slow-mo as well. He's effective in his game. So to just base it off of athleticism and say that he's not going to fare well, I don't know. I don't see it. He's the only, there's a reason why he's the only player in history, aside from Russell Westbrook now, to average a triple-double. And that's greatness. He's in the legacy book. So with that being said, Oscar Robertson undoubtedly can play in the NBA today.
Yeah, and I was also reading something about Fat Lever, who was essentially the precursor to Russell Westbrook, because in the 80s, he had, I think, 43 triple-doubles for the Denver Nuggets as a 6'3" guard. And, I'm guessing if you take his style of play to today, he could probably translate well as well, because Westbrook is doing it now. So it's an interesting question. I firmly believe that Oscar can do it, no doubt, because you're seeing players like Luka, who's only 3 inches taller than him, putting up monster numbers. Why couldn't he? Right? So that being said, it's time for the Russell Westbrook and Stephen Curry argument. Now, we had this discussion on social media, but I think that Russell Westbrook is not a point guard. All the things that he's doing, they're great, but he is stylistically not a point guard. And I don't know if you guys agree with me. I think he's a shooting guard, personally.
I don't agree. Just want that to be known.
I absolutely agree, Jarrod, that he is an absolute 2 guard. His mentality is nothing like a point guard whatsoever.
I think there's a really interesting argument there. And it's something where I absolutely see both sides, but I think with what he's doing and how well he is able to pass and kick the ball, he is a point guard. But that's not to say that when he was a shooting guard on the Rockets and he was playing some of the best ball of his career and what would have been. But I mean, Russell Westbrook is excelling at the point guard position. I got to give him his props there.
Yeah. If you can sit here and say Steph Curry is a point guard and you believe that, you have to say Russell Westbrook is a point guard, because if we're talking about shooting guard, what is the ideal shooting guard? A score first person, right? A score first player, and Curry puts up the numbers. So if your argument is Curry is a point guard and you can't say that Russell Westbrook isn't, I don't know what to say.
I mean, that's just how I view it, right? Because the way that I see Russell Westbrook, he doesn't have the typical makings of a point guard, right? Because yes, he puts up assist numbers, but if you compare his assists to Chris Paul's, they're not the same.
Why are we comparing Chris Paul?
I'm just saying, because Chris Paul is considered to be the quintessential point guard, right? Everyone compares Chris Paul to the greatest of all time because he is probably the greatest point guard of all time. And you see, Curry comparisons with Chris Paul. Chris Paul's game as a pure point guard is closer to Curry's than it is to Westbrook's, if you get what I mean. Right? Speaking as a pure point guard perspective only. That's what I mean. That Curry
Correct.
is more of a point guard and Westbrook is more of a shooting guard. But go ahead, Daniel.
Gerrel, I gotta disagree with you on the perspective on the point guard position. I completely disagree. Like Gerrel, I think the point guard is a floor general for a reason. The point guard is a get everyone involved first, score later. That's not Russell Westbrook's mentality. Russell Westbrook's mentality. Yes, he can pass. That's part of his arsenal.
He
but
does
his
it
mentality,
all.
Russell Westbrook's mentality throughout his entire career is to score first, get that dunk first, pass second. Yes, he can pass, but that's not how his game works. Russell Westbrook just wants to score. Stephen Curry's a team player. He gets people involved. Chris Paul gets people involved.
I think it's more than scoring. I think it's more of the statistics. Because when he scored, I think 24 points against the Spurs, he did it on 9 of 26 shooting. I mean,
and that's okay, but I'm still about to ride for my guy Russell Westbrook. I mean, stats don't lie. He's a primary ball handler in every situation he goes in, aside from the Houston Rockets. We've seen the point guard position be revolutionized. These are words that's come straight out of your mouth, Daniel. Revolutionized, right? Curry is a shoot first point guard. When has he averaged over 8 assists a game? Please tell me, Jarrod.
Never.
Thank you. Stats don't lie. Now, let's go back to Russell Westbrook being the primary ball handler when OKC went to the finals and lost against the Miami Heat, right? When he won MVP, when he averaged triple-double multiple seasons. Now, I understand there's this prototypical type point guard, but like I said, it's shifted, it's changed. And Russell Westbrook gets those stats. He gets his teammates involved. And it maybe look selfish is because you don't like the guy, because he has an attitude, because he drives to the basket aggressively, but he still kicks it out. He still finds the open man. He still gets wins. He still gets W's. He still gets his other teammates involved. It might be a selfish way of getting involved because you want everybody to be smiles and have it be a cute little pick and roll. But I remember Russell Westbrook in a fast break transition, throwing some no look dimes, Magic Johnson-esque dimes. So to sit here and say that is not a point guard, somebody that is able to suck in the defense and kick out and make the appropriate play. Of course, there's some rough passes. Of course, it may not be perfect, but we've seen Curry do behind the back passes that aren't necessarily perfect, but it's so ooh and ah that we just love it. Russell Westbrook is a rough character, and I feel like he's getting a lot of hate from playing this point guard position well. There's no other point guard aside from Oscar Robertson to put up these stats. He's an MVP. Every time that he was And there was only one time, like I said, that he was out of the position of being a point guard, which was with Houston. Every other time, he is the primary ball handler. And what did you say a point guard was? The field general, the floor general, the person that is initiating the offense, is bringing the ball up the court, somebody that you're not really afraid that's going to turn the ball over. And I understand that's a contradiction because Russell Westbrook does turn the ball over, but stats don't lie.
Yeah. And I think going back to Curry real quick, he did average over 8 assists in 2013, 8.5.
Okay.
So
how many times did Russell Westbrook average over 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
The guy,
Right.
The one thing about Westbrook that I have to say, like, it is just Oscar Robertson averaged a triple-double. And no one brings this up anymore, but Charles Barkley always used to put Oscar Robertson in his top 5 players of all time. Say, the guy averaged a triple-double for a season. How can you not have him in your top 5? He averaged a triple-double for a season. I understand it's a different era, but no one else has ever done this. Robertson did it in 1962, and Westbrook has done it 4 out of 5 seasons again. It is historic, and we'll never see anything like this again. You know, Kobe Bryant, 21 triple-doubles. Michael Jordan, 25. Very different games. I'm very aware of that. But still, I really believe that what Russell Westbrook has done with the triple-double is revolutionary for the game. And it's really inspired other players to be able to do the same. And I would even go so far as to say Russell Westbrook has changed the game. And he's an absolute Hall of Famer. He may never win a championship, That's something I'm coming to terms with. But he really is a game-changing, generational, and in my opinion, top 30 player of all time.
I agree.
And
That's blasphemous, Skyler.
The
So-
athletic point guard.
yeah,
We've
he's
seen
athletic
those
point
type
guard.
of guards throughout history. Steve
One of
Francis.
the most
But he-
explosive point
Bro.
guards ever, man.
He's probably
Yeah.
the most explosive point guard. And Steve Francis fizzled out. Russell Westbrook is an MVP. He's not Derrick Rose. Sorry, Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose was supposed to be that next big thing. Russell Westbrook has not had any crazy injuries. He's longevity. He's been there. 12 years in the league. He's still playing at a high clip. He should be an all NBA selection this year. And he's about to help get the Wizards to the playoffs.
So
Come on. Y'all just hating, bro. I don't understand it.
it's not okay. It's not hating. All right. If it was hating, I wouldn't give him his credit, which I am about to. He is one of the best players of all time. Where you have him is inconsequential because he is going to get up there, regardless of what we think at the end of the day. That being said, because of his style of play and because of the frequency with which he gets triple doubles, do you guys think that triple doubles are just becoming like a meh thing now? Because before we were like, oh my God, a triple double, that's amazing. But then we're seeing triple doubles like almost on a daily basis. Because a few weeks ago, 6 players had a triple double.
Yep.
Like,
And that has changed since Russell Westbrook averaged the triple-double in 2017.
but
And that's why I give him some credit.
Of course. But my question to you is a triple double worth less now, at least amongst, I guess, fans, players, executives? Because
A
they're seeing
triple-double, yeah.
because they're seeing triple doubles come up on a near daily basis. Like Nikola Jokic is almost averaging a triple double. Luka Doncic is almost averaging a triple double. All these different players are almost averaging triple doubles. And so I'm just curious, because of the frequency with which Westbrook got these triple doubles, are those kind of not declining, but is it decreasing the value of a triple double altogether?
Absolutely. I just think with the whole, the game is much more point guard, one and two guard eccentric now, more focused on those positions. And with the 3-point revolution and the advent of spacing back in the early 2000s, it's become much more easier for point guards and shooting guards alike, even even wings as well, to average these triple double numbers. You could have like you brought up Nikola Jokic. Anyone can have triple doubles now. Like back in the 90s, like
Sorry.
I get what he's saying. I get what he's saying. I guess
Oh.
with the amount of because it's happening so frequently, I think that's what he means, that anyone can get a triple double now.
My
yeah,
bad.
back
I'm
in the
sorry.
90s, the odds of like a big getting a triple double were much more less. Now it's actually theoretically, depending what big you are, like Nikola Jokic, it's theoretically possible.
Or
So
even
yeah,
Joel
the triple
Embiid.
double,
Interesting.
yes. So and it's because of Russell Westbrook that the triple double doesn't mean as much jack shit now than what it meant 10 years ago. 10 years ago.
Maybe a single night of triple doubles, but averaging one for a season 4 times. Look, I don't care who's almost averaging. You can almost win the championship, but that doesn't make you a champion. And yes, there probably will be another player who averages a triple double, but he's done it 4 times in 5 seasons. So if you want to say a single night triple double is watered down, sure. If you want to say multiple streaks of 8 triple doubles, 7 triple doubles, 11 triple doubles, no, that's incredible. And Westbrook has redefined that.
It's a bit of stat padding.
It for this player, Russell Westbrook, to receive so much hate, not
It's
only on this
crazy.
podcast, but on Twitter, it just shows how amazing this player is. Because usually
He's poor.
the greats get the most hate. And I understand now. Y'all hating on Russell Westbrook. That's cool. Y'all hated on his comments about he's already a champion. That's cool. Y'all hate how he gets upset. I'm talking in the general public. I'm not just pointing you out, but if the shoe fits, it fits, Jarrod. But that's cool. Y'all get mad at him going off on reporters because he's true to himself. That's cool. But to sit here and say a triple double is watered down, what the? It's because of Russell Westbrook that y'all hating so much on it. Y'all still in love with the 3-pointer. We as a coach, you always tell your players, if you're not doing one thing, impact the game on another aspect. And Russell Westbrook is the perfect example of that, because if he goes 9 for 26, shout out to Kobe, you keep shooting those shots, right? But he's also going to rebound. He's also going to play make. He's going to play hard. And this dog mentality that Russell Westbrook has to go here and average a triple-double 4 seasons in a row and put up these numbers, because look at this, for throughout the seasons, he's putting up comparably to what Curry is doing. Curry's put 10 threes and I don't know how many games. Russell Westbrook getting multiple triple doubles. Like Skyler said, ridiculous. Almost doesn't count. Curry almost had a Finals MVP. Russell Westbrook ain't almost have a triple-double average for the season. He's done it multiple times. Put his stamp on the NBA. He's revolutionized a lot of players, because you see Luka Doncic out here impacting the game on multiple aspects, even if he doesn't want to give him credit. LeBron James has been doing it majority all his career, and Russell Westbrook is not that almost person. He gets it done.
Yeah. And something that Skyler brought a little bit earlier was that I think you said along the lines of that we won't see a player do this again. I think that we can probably see Luka, because he came close last year.
Yes.
And I think that within the next, 5 years, he could potentially average a triple-double season if he keeps continuing at the pace he's at, because he's super close right now. He's averaging almost 30, almost 8, and almost 9 assists per contest. So he can potentially do this next year.
We'll see a player average a triple-double again. What I'm saying is we won't see a player average a triple-double 4 times in 5 seasons.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. That's what I'm, as far as the single season triple-double, I do think we'll see that a few more times. Yeah. But 4 triple-double averages in 5 seasons when no one had done it since 62, it's really something to behold. And it's, love him or hate him, we'll all miss Russ and having these debates when he's gone. And he's such a polarizing figure. And I really do appreciate his greatness on my end. And I appreciate the hate as well. And hearing that, as someone who's always really enjoyed Russell Westbrook and his game and how much Kobe liked him. And Kobe always said, they hate the great ones. And that's the way it goes. There's still people who hate on Curry, as we talked about, so it's just, it happens. But to me, what Russell Westbrook has done for the triple-double is revolutionary. And whenever someone does something great and makes it regular, you can say it gets watered down, even with the 3-point shot, technically. Look at what Greg Popovich was saying before the Warriors. Well, 3-pointers don't win champions. Now everybody's shooting the 3 and doing this. But you can't forget who started that. And you can't forget who did that. And so I think when it comes to triple-doubles, Russell Westbrook really has revolutionized the game in that aspect. Hasn't led to a championship, but his aggression, his explosiveness, to me, makes him a top 30 Allen Iverson type of player that we'll always remember.
Absolutely. And I think something else that we forget about Russell Westbrook, whenever he comes on in our minds, is it makes for great content. And that being said, great content. Guys, can you believe that there's only about a dozen games of the regular season left before the play-in tournament? That's absolutely insane.
That's wild.
And
I'm ready for the playoffs to begin.
I'm not. I want this regular season to keep going because I don't want basketball out of my life. But something of note that I was reading, about 24 teams are still competing for something, which is the highest number the league's ever had, according to NBA Vice President Evan Wasch, W-A-S-C-H. Sorry if I said that name wrong. But yeah, 24 teams still have something to fight for this late in the season, which is the highest ever. And so I just kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on this season as it's sadly coming to a somewhat fast conclusion. I think the season's been pretty solid, all things considered. Injuries have been horrific. I mean, that's just insane. Yeah. That's horrible. But apart from that, I'm, the Lakers with the 72-day layover or layoff, it's been good. I mean, I'm thoroughly enjoying this season, but your guys' thoughts?
I'm going to be as honest as I can. For the situation the league was put in, the league did the best it could. But let's be honest, the injuries have put a a dark cloud over the season a lot in general. For example, the Lakers, the Lakers went through huge portions of their season without their two stars. I mean, the NBA is a star-driven league, and it's also a TV product. You need LeBron and AD on there, and also the lack of crowds have kind of dampened the magic you kind of associate in watching NBA basketball. Like there's some every. I'm gonna be honest with this season. In retrospect, that there was, at some points it just wasn't fun because you didn't even have, like "we want tacos" chants at Lakers games that were commonplace. It's just something was just, it didn't feel right. So in a way, when this season ends, I'll be glad it's over because we can finally get back to normal and back to a normal NBA season. But for what the league, the environment they put themselves in, they did the best they could. I will say though, it hasn't been the best basketball with all the injuries as well. That's my honest opinion.
Shout out to the Lakers and Wingstop because I got a lot of free wings, so that's something cool. But yeah, I've enjoyed the season. Aside from the injuries, we already spoke about that, but just to have the product of basketball to get on this podcast week in and week out and talk about and discuss different topics that are occurring, it's amazing. So very optimistic. I can't wait for the playoffs. We also have to put into account the safety of people. So, I mean, aside from like Karen and at the Atlanta game, we had some cool interactions. I noticed Ben McLemore, when we got fans in, he had that one night where he went off with a couple of threes. He had like 17 points in the second half or something like that. He kept doing his like celebration to the crowd. So as we slowly but surely get more and more fans in, I understand that aspect of the what you said, Daniel. It just brings another enjoyment to the game, but not having the fans didn't take the enjoyment away from the game. I still enjoy it, and I look at the fans as just an enhancer. So this season has been great for what we had. We made the best of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that this season's been interesting, to say the least. It's just, of course, there's the injuries, but yeah, to me, I know there's a couple fan interactions, but when you think of something like Kobe's final season and you think of him tossing stuff to the full crowd and people fighting to get at it, and just the energy of the crowd and the different people that are there, and Staples Center being a happening event, it's been different. I've really enjoyed getting to watch basketball, but there's no question it's okay to accept watching basketball feels just a little bit different right now. And it'll get back to normal and it'll be great again. And it still is that relief. But if ever you're watching basketball and it doesn't feel quite the same right now, that's okay, because it's really not. And it will be there, and that energy will come back. And I think playoffs are going to be fire. Situation around the world, everywhere's got fans back a little bit right now, it seems. So some of that energy will be there. We're going to be further towards the tail end of this pandemic, hopefully. And I'm hoping that these playoffs can be a real time of hope and joy for a lot of people. And I think that this season has been interesting, been good. We've had a couple of great nights, great performances, great storylines. But I think these playoffs could end up being something really special and memorable.
Go ahead, Daniel.
I just wanted to point out, I forgot to say this in my argument, but I'm going to be honest. I know I've said that so many times on this podcast, but I just don't think one of the downsides to this season is that I did not feel the regular season, because of the injuries, did not feel as important as years past. It's because of those injuries, and like we've just been waiting for the playoffs, from my point of view, to start like this whole time, because it just feels like what LeBron AD is it felt like the star players, at least, that the real season was the playoffs, and the regular season, like the attitude, like we just gotta make the playoffs attitudes, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of the regular season. But that's just me.
I think that's an interesting point, because you bring up that attitude of, let's just go into the playoffs. It's fine. We can just scrap the regular season, turn on Rondo mode, and be playoff Rondo, right?
That's a problem. In my opinion.
That's why they're they're looking to amend that problem because the NBA quotes expects an easy approval to make the play-in tournament permanent, according to Sports Illustrated. It's made the league more competitive and it's de-emphasized tanking. And quote from Howard Beck from Sports Illustrated, the tanking era is, as we knew it, is over. So I think that's kind of a way to get rid of that feeling because we're looking at it with about 2 weeks left until the playoffs or whatever. 24 teams are still competing. That means that six, if I did my math right, only six have been mathematically eliminated from the playoff play-in tournament. And so it's giving more teams an incentive to try harder to make it into that play-in tournament so that they can make it to the playoffs. So I think whatever you're feeling is kind of like a holdover from seasons past. I think moving forward, that feeling will slowly dissipate as we become more acclimated with the play-in tournament, which personally I think this is the play-in tournament is a great idea, personally speaking, because it adds a
Excellent
little bit,
idea.
it adds more competitiveness, regardless of what Luka Doncic and Mark Cuban thinks. It adds more competitiveness and it adds more. It's fun. It's
Yeah.
it's like
Yes.
it's an added level of suspense. Plus,
Yes.
that suspense equals money for the NBA.
For 5 minutes, it's like the NBA's version of March Madness for just a couple
Yes.
games. It's incredible. I love it. I think it's a
Entertainment.
great idea, and I hope it sticks around. I can't wait for like fans to really be back for a single game elimination play-in tournament. Oh, it's gonna be amazing.
Right, dude, that's sick.
I got a question, and I
Go ahead.
love it. So I was looking at I was watching a game I think like last week, and they posted how the play-in tournament works. You have the 7th seed versus the 8th seed, right? And the 9th seed versus the 10th seed, right?
Yeah.
So 7th, whoever wins out of 7th, 8th gets the 7th seed. Whoever wins out of 9th and 10th gets the 8th seed, right?
So, okay, 7, 8 play for the 7th seed. If whoever is 9, 10, they play one game. Whoever wins that game plays the loser of the 7, 8, and then whoever wins that game gets 8th.
Okay,
Mhm.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Tough.
Yeah, right. If you're 9 and 10, like the Warriors and the Spurs right now, against the what is it, the Trailblazers and the Grizzlies right now, 7, 8.
Bruh.
I'm pretty sure. But
Yeah.
if you're the Warriors, you really want to get up to that 6 spot to complete everything, or just get into that 7, 8, so you only have to play one time. But if you're the Spurs and you have to play against the Warriors and then potentially the Rockets, oh man, good luck, good friggin' luck, because that's just a murderer's row of players or teams that you don't want to play, and then you have to play against the number 1 seed, which is probably Utah. Man, good luck.
Tough.
But it makes for good content.
Facts.
But
Mhm.
we're talking about good content and we're talking about the play-in tournament. One of the teams that surprised me this season, at least, is whatever team is playing in New York, the Knicks. And shout out to Skyler for putting this on the doc. The NBA, according to Mark Stein, NBA stars are considering the Knicks. Quote, there have been whispers that the Knicks' resurgence has helped New York become a destination franchise again. To that, I reply, no.
Uh,
I just, no. I don't think they'd rock the boat for a star and then just be like, hey, we're the Knicks. We won 8 games. We won 8 straight a few weeks ago. Ooh.
I mean,
here's how I view things. This season has been weird, and like we've seen this in the Western Conference. Utah and Phoenix are on top of the Western Conference. To me, Utah and Phoenix, if this was a normal season, they would not be the first and 2 seeds. With that being said, it all depends. Yes, I think the Knicks have been much better improved this season than in years past, and the Knicks, their future looks brighter today than it was yesterday.
Yeah.
That being said, since this season wasn't normal, it all depends what happens in the next, 1 or 2 seasons. If the Knicks can carry on the success with Tom Thibodeau and Julius Randle as, as head coach and, star player, and the players can keep becoming more consistent and keep this level of play up, then yes, I think eventually a star will come to New York. But that being said, there's also downsides. James Dolan is still the owner of the New York Knicks, and the biggest way to alienate potential free agents is to have a bad owner. So all these bad apples are still in this Knicks franchise and situation. So in my opinion, it all hinges on like what the Knicks do in the short term future, which will determine whether a star comes to New York.
Did you say bad apples because New York is known as the Big Apple?
Yeah, bad apples.
Okay.
That was
Nice.
completely by accident.
It works.
That was accident.
Okay. Well, go ahead, G. Whoever
Nothing is
wants.
by accident, to quote Kung Fu Panther there. It's meant to happen.
Oh man. I think this is good for the Knicks. The team I want to compare it to is the Clippers. Back with Doc Rivers and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, instead of tanking, they fought for that playoff spot, right? They fought for it, and I think this is what we're seeing in the Knicks, but a little bit progressed a little bit further down the line because now they have an all-NBA talent and an all-star in Julius Randle. And they're showing a strong foundation predicated on defense. We've seen this within Miami players. Avery Bradley, we see how that turned out, but he went to the Miami Heat because the culture there. Jimmy Butler, he wants to stay in Miami because the culture there. So all the Knicks are doing right now is building a culture. They're building an identity, and I feel like they found that this season, and that's going to equate into potential free agents. Now, I'm not saying the Kevin Durant's of the NBA's, but free agents that can potentially help push them over the edge to be a scary opponent when it comes to playoff time. And I think their audition is going to happen in the playoffs. Yes, they won 8 straight games in a row, Jarrod, but what seed are they in the East right now?
6, right?
I think they were 4th.
But then they lost to the Suns on a Chris Paul shot.
So
it's crazy. Changing every day.
With the Knicks not even being able to make the playoffs in the past 5 years, right, to being in the conversation of 4th to 6th seed, that is good news for Knicks fans. And I think what also is building up that destination to be on the New York Knickerbockers is competition, Daniel. Like you said, NBA 2K needs competition. You got the Brooklyn Nets that are building up this team, right? And it's everybody wants to go to Brooklyn Nets, right? Because it's Brooklyn, and you have a superstar, super team. So I think with that, everybody wants to go to Clippers, everybody wants to go to Lakers, they want to be in LA. So now you can potentially be that superstar that can bring that competition to the Brooklyn Nets while joining the Knicks.
And the Knicks are 4th right now, even after that loss. They're still in 4th. And so that's big. They're going to make the playoffs. They're taken seriously. And not just that, but Julius Randle is becoming the type of guy that you really want to play with. Like, he himself has become an attractive all-star who dishes the ball, who's a team player, who can really do it all. If I had to say which free agent I think is going, I think there's 2 possibilities here. I think, first of all, Chris Paul needs his own show where he goes into a team and fixes up the franchise each different year. I mean, what he's done with the Thunder and the Suns, this is awesome. So I can see Chris Paul and then the Knicks bringing him in and him really making a difference there. The other one, we mentioned him earlier, I could see Russell Westbrook going to the Knicks with Julius Randle.
Oh, no.
How wild would that be? Russ in New York, KD in Brooklyn. I'd love to see it. But I do think that those superstars really kind of looking for their own team. Or Russ said he wanted to be the floor general, and I could really see him filling that role for the New York Knicks. And I think that'd be a show. I think it would be showtime in New York if that happens. So let's see where it goes. But if I had to make my calls, I think those are my 2 biggest candidates. But I do think New York is once again, somehow, some way, about to become an attractive free agent market again. And when the Lakers and Knicks are good, the NBA is a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to say, throughout my whole entire life, the New York market in terms of basketball, besides like that little stint with Carmelo Anthony,
exactly,
has not been really successful. And as a basketball fan, and like we've been told as young children how New York is this so-called mecca of basketball, but they've been dog shit for like 20 years. So I mean, like, I think New York Knicks being in championship contention and like being a like, a vocal part of the game of basketball in the NBA in terms of like, that inner circle of championship contenders, that only bodes well for the league. Remember, New York's the biggest media market for a reason. Like
Right.
it benefits both. It benefits the league in general if both cities, LA and New York, are good.
Absolutely. And I think that, the way that the Knicks are playing, who knew that defense wins games? Who knew? But that's something they haven't done in
Like the
that that's
'90s.
that's something they haven't done in like the last 20 years, with the exception of some Carmelo Anthony years,
Mm-hmm.
but that's neither here nor there. But just to get into some quick hitters real quick before we wrap things up. Daniel, you mentioned things not boding well. Well, for Nike, things are not boding well, at least in this particular instance, because as you guys know, as Kobe fans, Kobe Bryant's contract with Nike expired on April 13th. Nike didn't renew that. They opted not to give Kobe a lifetime deal. And as a result, Vanessa Bryant is looking to other apparel brands after Kobe's deal expired. And again, he wasn't given a lifetime deal, and she didn't like how Nike was using his name for profit. Particularly, one of the main things that she had an issue with was the fact that Nike was using Kobe's name to push out the shoes, the brands, whatever, but they weren't doing anything to help fans get the sneakers or whatever merchandise that they needed. And so Vanessa was like, "Hey, we need to give the fans, the actual fans, those sneakers, gear, apparel, what have you." And Nike was just like, "No, that's good. We'll just let the resellers have them." And so that's why she's exploring her options. And as you guys know, Kobe was exploring his options before his death in 2020. He actually had a few meetings set up with different apparel brands to start his own company. I think it was called Mamba Sportswear or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just quick thoughts on this. I think Vanessa Bryant is doing a great service to her fans, or to his fans and her fans now, because she's standing up for the little people, right? She's saying, "Hey, these people want the kicks. These people want the gear that, my husband wore, and they love him so much. Why don't you just give it to him? Give it to them, give it to everyone." And Nike's like, "No. We just want a profit." Cool. So props to her.
Uh, Absolutely agree. I think what Vanessa Bryant is doing is the right move. I think people deserve for to have the legacy of Kobe Bryant continue. And I honestly think Nike's personally doing Vanessa and Kobe's memory dirty here. And it's like it doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, Kobe Bryant was one of the most recognizable athletes throughout his entire career, and he probably
Especially
made
when it comes
so
to
much money for
marketability.
Absolutely.
Facts.
yeah. Kobe was a god in China for a reason. Like few players, even though the NBA is big in China, like few players had the atmosphere that or the reputation Kobe had in China. So I mean, it's just like even from a business move, like well, I don't know if it's even a business, but from a personal standpoint, I think it's like Nike's obligation to like just honor the man's memory here. So
Yeah.
like yes, so I hope someone else picks up Kobe's brand and apparel, and hopefully his legacy continues to live on.
Agreed. I think this is the best choice because now the Bryant family is getting they're taking the power back. This is their creation. I know that Nike, elevated being able to distribute all of the products, but you're not getting the most out of it. It's more of appreciation, not all about the money. There's actual Kobe fans out there that want to keep the product and not resell it. So like I said, this is Vanessa just taking the power back to the Bryant name, and I hope that whatever decision is made is the best decision for her family, as well as, when I say her family, I'm not just speaking about the Bryant family themselves, but the community that is revolving around them now.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a really wonderful move by Vanessa. She's just one of the strongest women ever. She will never have closure on what happened. And for her to go up and speak at Kobe Bryant's funeral the way she did, and to carry on with her daughters, and that's exactly what she is, a very strong woman. And the Kobe Bryant brand is so important with the Mamba and Montecito Sports Foundation, with Granity Studios. You got Granity Studios making content. You got books still coming out. You got unwritten screenplays. You got all these ideas that Kobe had. And so but that's all Kobe, and that's all the brand. And I think it should actually provide a lot of solace, I hope, in the sense that, yeah, Nike didn't do it right, but they're in control. And the Mamba footwear. And Kobe has a legion of not just dedicated fans, but people who really loved him and like just believe in his mentality of perseverance and of positivity and just always trying to be better the next day. And I think that if Nike isn't going to honor that, if they're not going to give the lifetime deal, if they're not going to respect Kobe Bryant as the enigma that he was just for the dollar. And not just that, but what Kobe did for the company. I mean, Kobe would talk about Mark Parker. Kobe was in the rooms designing shoes with Nike. I mean, he learned with Tinker, like the little intricacies of making shoes and laces and soles and everything. And it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking that with what happened, they wouldn't just do everything. And it's not a great reflection, unfortunately. It's really not. It's tough. The whole Kobe Nike jumping over the car, LeBron Kobe puppet relationship. Yes. Rest in peace to that now. Totally. Oh, the best. But yeah, no, I really, really think that it's the right move by Vanessa. And Kobe has such a legion of fans and people that loved and respected him. And that matters. And that will pay dividends in the future for the Bryant family, not just in terms of dollars or anything, but in keeping the legacy alive.
Absolutely. And, sometimes the chase for the almighty dollar sometimes clouds people's judgments. And, that's how it is, that's capitalism. That's just, the end goal is to make as much money as you can, regardless of the means you get there. So it sucks, but, props to Vanessa Bryant for doing this. And last thing here before we wrap things up. Daniel, you've been talking a lot about having an NBA franchise in a different country. Well, your wish has been answered somewhat, because the G League will have its first team outside the United States and Canada, the Capitanes de Ciudad de Mexico, the Mexico City Captains. Pretty sure that's right. My pronunciation of whatever that was wrong. So don't bash me too hard on that. But yeah, they have their first team located in Mexico City. And they were supposed to join last year, but the pandemic hit, and the pandemic destroyed everything. But yeah, quick thoughts on having a G League team, in Mexico. I think this is fantastic, honestly. Global game.
This is a fantastic move by part of the NBA and the G League in general. Like it's become apparent basketball is growing across the globe, and I think in 2 to 3 decades time at least, there will be no doubt that basketball will at least be the second most popular sport on the globe. I don't think anything is going to ever catch soccer, but that's not the point. The game is from what I hear and what I've researched, the game is indeed growing in Mexico. And to put a G League team in that area, part of the world, is kind of encouraging news to me. In that it shows me that the NBA is interested in having a team down in Mexico in the future, which only means more fans coming down the line. I think Mexico City has the market and the city in general to hold a basketball franchise. And I think a basketball franchise down in Mexico will be ginormously successful in the long run.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree with Daniel, just echoing what he just said. I think just the other aspect is encouraging other people, other individuals to want to play the game of basketball. So just being exposed to it just by having that G League team there, potentially down the line, there's going to be games being played there. So they're going to be able to see all of these G League players that are going to turn into NBA players. So it's just another opportunity there. And I'm glad to hear it. Let's keep expanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, having a G League down in Mexico, it just expands the international reach of the NBA and the ever-growing reach, particularly with the Africa League. And I think that, we've talked about this a bit before, but the NBA is becoming such an incredibly global game. And this is just such a sign of that. And I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how it competes. I think this could create really interesting Olympic competition eventually, because now you're going to have kids in Mexico growing up inspired to play basketball. And, and look, we got India listening to our podcast now. It's absolutely incredible, the globalness of the game. And I think that it's only going to go up from here. And this is a really great step.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. This is a great step, and it's only going to go up from here. But speaking of things, Daniel, you brought this up, fantastic moves. Another fantastic move is if you subscribe to the Shooting Bricks podcast and leave a review on your platform of choice. It really helps us out. Lastly, make sure to follow us on @PodcastBricks on Twitter, @ShootingBricksPodcast on Instagram, and @The Shooting Bricks Podcast on YouTube for all the news and the video of this episode of the Shooting Bricks Podcast up available pretty soon. So make sure you do all those things. It really helps us out. Anything you guys do, communicate with us. We love it. We love all the interaction. So please keep doing that. We love all the support. And yeah, let's take this to bigger and better heights. But as always, I'm Jarrod Castillo.
I'm Daniel Huynh, and I'm gonna probably eat salt and straw ice cream this weekend at Venice Beach. For joining me as well.
And this was an amazing episode. Follow us on the platforms. Reach out to us. Let's have some conversation. Tag us in your stories. We love it. Of course, it's your boy, Gerrel Sales. And you know my favorite phrase, of course, we have.
Hey, yo, what up? This is Skyler Treppel. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Shooting Bricks podcast. Shout out to everyone in India. Subscribe, comment, and shout out to Mr. Kobe Bean Bryant and Vanessa, and the fact that legacy will be carrying on as I'm wearing my Anthony Davis Lakers jersey, carrying on that legacy. So we will see what happens as the NBA comes to a close.
Right. We will see what happens when the NBA comes to a close, and we will see everyone else next week.